that breaking news that dropped just moments ago. According to a source familiar with the matter, Donald Trump has asked the U.S. Supreme Court to overturn the ruling that the Colorado Supreme Court made just weeks ago, barring him from the ballot in that state on the grounds of the 14th Amendment, an amendment that, of course, says anyone who has engaged in insurrection or rebellion cannot hold public office. Now, Trump, we understand in this filing, says he did not engage in insurrection because of his efforts to overturn the 2020 election loss. And this really is a pivotal moment in Trump's candidacy, of course, but also for the highest court in the United States, where there are 6 conservative justices and 3 of them were appointed by the former president. So we'll have more on this story in just a moment, but there is much more to discuss this evening, including what's happening at the U.S. Mexico border, where House Speaker Mike Johnson held an event with fellow Republicans earlier today.
What we saw today only made House Republicans more resolved to stand for sanity and the American people, and we will do it. If President Biden wants a supplemental spending bill focused on national security, it better begin by defending America's national security.
Joining us now from our Dallas bureau is Texas Bureau Chief Julie Fine here with Bloomberg. So, Julie, obviously there were a load of them today. About 60 Republicans were there at the border. Did they tell us anything we didn't already know?
Well, I think what they're really doing is putting the pressure on the president before the supplemental comes, before the date comes. This is a winning issue for Republicans. They frequently are here at the border. Today, however, bringing the speaker really puts a spotlight on what they are going to be pushing, not only when it comes to the budget, but also in an election year, Kailey.
Well, the idea that this is an election year is something that the White House has seized on, essentially saying that this is political. And actually, we heard from the White House and the press secretary earlier today. Karine Jean-Pierre was talking specifically about this. Let's take a listen to a little bit of what she said.
Instead of entering this year with a new approach to deliver for the American people, House Republicans are prioritizing baseless impeachment stunts. In fact, earlier today, House Republicans said, and I quote, "We'll shut the government down. We control the money."
Julie, she referenced there the idea of impeachment. Specifically, we know that the House Republicans are pursuing an impeachment of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. How does all of these efforts tie together?
Well, first of all, you can talk about the impeachment efforts, and she can say that it's political. It really doesn't matter if they're moving forward with it, whether it's political or not. It's going to happen. This takes attention away from the president during an election year. It also, once again, shines a light on the border, which is something that Republicans really want to do right now. Over and over, they have said this is an issue that they are going to pursue. You're seeing it throughout the United States when migrants are going to different cities, and cities are dealing with how to keep up with that. So in that sense, it all ties together. It is something that the president will be forced to be talking about during this election year.
All right, Julie Fine, our Texas Bureau Chief, thank you so much. We want to turn now to the Middle East, where a pair of bomb blasts in Iran killed more than 100 people. National Security Council spokesman John Kirby talked about this earlier today, taking a question about the perpetrator of the attacks during a briefing at the White House. Take a listen.
I know you said you don't have any great detail on who was responsible, but can you rule out that Israel had anything to do with this?
We have no indication at this time at all that Israel was involved in any way whatsoever.
So let's bring in now Bloomberg national security reporter Nick Wadhams. So, Nick, he said they really don't know, and yet this adds to a series of events. Iran sending a warship to the Red Sea, Israel striking targets, Hamas targets, but in Lebanon, in Beirut. It feels like everything, the temperature is being turned up. How concerned is the U.S. at this point about what's taking place?
I think very concerned. I mean, the big issue here, obviously, is the administration has said since the October 7th attack by Hamas, they do not want this conflict between Israel and Hamas to turn into a wider regional war. And whether that means Israel versus Hezbollah or Iran entering the conflict, whatever it is, they want to keep things relatively contained and let Israel conduct its campaign in Gaza, but not allow the violence to spread. Now you have these indications that Israel may be going beyond its borders to Lebanon to target Hamas leaders. The bomb blasts in Iran, what we're hearing from U.S. officials is their initial supposition is this might have been the Islamic State or somebody else. And as John Kirby just said, they're not Israel. But obviously lots more to come in the days ahead.
Well, especially considering Iran has sent the warship, as I mentioned. Obviously, there's been a lot of activity specifically with these Iranian proxies, the Houthis from Yemen, Hezbollah in Lebanon as well. Is there any sign that Iran is going to try to engage in this conflict more directly than just through the proxies?
Right. I mean, that is really the big question. It's the one thing that everybody obviously wants to avoid. But so far, what indications we have is that, no, Iran does not want to engage. You know, it was interesting, though, the rhetoric coming out of the Iranian government today as a result of these bomb blasts. They said they didn't directly say Israel was to blame, but they said these bombs targeted Iranians because of Iran's role in what they called the axis of resistance against Israel. So they're certainly playing that card. At the same time, you are not seeing, yes, you have the warship going through the Red Sea, but you are not seeing any indications so far that Iran is going to play anything other than a proxy role, which is still quite significant, obviously funding Hezbollah, funding the Houthis, but so far we haven't seen them sort of come out of the shadows and engage their forces directly.
Well, when we think about the Red Sea specifically, the U.S. obviously has formed this alliance, this maritime task force to try to protect vessels in those waters, and the task force essentially warned today that the Houthis need to stop because it's being incredibly disruptive. It hasn't had that effect thus far, though, these deterrent or defensive measures. So where are we on the offense conversation?
Well, I mean, this is the big question that we're all waiting for. The statement today was very tough-minded, and they didn't explicitly threaten military action, but they said that the Houthis will bear all responsibility for any actions that result from their attacks. So in Diplo speak, in the language of countries working out these threats, I mean, that's about as explicit as you can get. Obviously, they do not want to telegraph that they might be considering strikes. But we know this is a very live debate within the administration. Do you continue to play defense, as you said, or do you eliminate this threat at the source? And right now, the indication is that shippers and others are not going to be reassured until they know for sure that those Houthi missiles are eliminated at the source. That's a big risk for the United States, though.